Anywhere you wanna go, anywhere the wind blows, always I
I have trained mostly on single set training, single set of each exercise that I've done. And I started out training that way. I did that for, quite a few years. And then I took about a 5-year side road. I got detoured for about 5 years and trained in more of a traditional fashion. And those workouts were fine and everything, but I did notice that the progress that I made was not comparable. I'm speaking of myself now, okay? Training that way, doing multiple sets per exercise, 3 to 5 sets per exercise, 3 to 5 days a week, and a grand total of anywhere from 12 to 20 sets per body part. It just was exhausting in my world. And the payoff for that was minimal at best after all of that time. So was there progress? Yeah, there was some progress, but was it comparable to what I did when I did single set training? No. So that was, my own personal experiment. I went right back to it after those 5.
With these tricep extensions, I'm using a tempo or a cadence where I'm lowering the weight in 4 seconds and then raising it in 2 seconds. And I'll do that throughout the entire set. As the set progresses, of course, and the muscle starts to get exhausted, the speed on the positive or the raising of the weight, the concentric, will end up slowing down a little bit even further. But my goal is 4 seconds down, 2 seconds up, and taking this set also to the point where I can no longer raise it up. It'll land in the 6 to 10 repetition again in that range. And I do get 7 clean repetitions before my partner has to assist me to complete the repetition on number 8. And this occasion, I go straight to negatives. So I get a lot of help on the way up, on the positive portion when I hit number 8. A lot of help hits right here, and then I come down very slowly in 8 to 10 seconds, fighting through that negative the whole way through, right till it hits my head, and you'll see my skull is turning red at this point because I'm giving an all-out effort, and I get 4 extra repetitions of just purely negatives at the end of this set. Negatives are extremely severe, and they hit the muscle deep, making a deep inroad into your strength levels, as well as stimulating even further growth beyond just going to positive concentric failure.
Years, and I've been that way. For the last 25 years, the only type of training that I've done, if I'm talking about my bodybuilding training now, my bodybuilding training has simply been strictly single set training, but then I've thrown in occasional powerlifting cycles that I enjoy doing. And that is, one of the things you have to do if you're in it for the long haul. In training, if you're in it for the long haul, you're going to train for more than 3 to 5 years. So you're going to put in about 35 years. How does that sound? And if you're going to go that long, you better have some alternative routines to do.
On these shoulder presses, I have a goal to get between 6 and 10 repetitions. And I do get 8 repetitions before the muscle is no longer able to complete the repetition in good form, and the weight will simply stop going up. My partner at that time assists me by giving me 2 forced repetitions. That is just enough of an assist so that I can push through and get through to the top of the repetition. And after those 2 forced repetitions, I'll go right into 2 negative emphasis repetitions. Those are just negatives, they're called, where I'm going to lower the weight in 8 to 10 seconds, totally under control, and further stimulating the delts and the triceps for growth. That's it.
And occupy your mind and your physique during those times. I do certain things you all have seen from some of my videos. I've done powerlifting cycles, mainly linear periodization. I'm kind of old school about that because I'm not really interested in competing in powerlifting. And then I also do some blood flow restriction occlusion training. I'll take a cycle of that on occasion as well. So that's my own personal formula. But for the most part, when it comes to my bodybuilding training, I am a single set guy, influenced heavily by some former mentors such as Mike Mentzer. I consider Dorian Yates and everything that he's taught about high intensity training over the years as Mr. Olympia to be an inspiration, whereas Mike Mentzer was more of a mentor with his teachings. I learned quite a bit from Mike Mentzer. Arthur Jones had his ideas with Nautilus. Unfortunately, I never met the man, and I was never really so enamored with the whole Nautilus circuit training type routine. It was not, one of the things, the rush factor training where you go quickly from one exercise to another, and you do so for 8 or 12 exercises, and then the workout's over with in 19 or 30 minutes. That one never appealed to me. It wasn't my favorite way to work out. And while it did bring some results, it just wasn't my favorite way to work out. So you have to, again, like how you train. So what's the thing about single set training? Well, when it comes to training a single set of each exercise, you can choose. It's your choice. If you're interested in becoming a competitive bodybuilder like Dorian Yates during his career, or myself during my career as a natural bodybuilder, I won the Mr. America, I won the natural Mr. Universe. If you're interested in becoming a bodybuilder, a competitive one, you do have to have an attention to details. Does that mean that you walk a fine line at times? Yes. Does it mean that you have to take chances on training with a little more or a few more numbers of exercises to get details in certain parts of the muscle? Yes, it does. I did train my neck, my forearms. I did train multiple exercises for my back, but single set for each exercise. And I would take that set to the very, very end of at least positive or concentric failure. Taking a set of an exercise to concentric failure at the very least, in my mind, justified doing one set. Going further than that, where you're doing maybe a couple of forced reps, a couple of negatives, so you're exhausting every level you can of the muscle. If you take it through to that level, then you're most definitely not going to do over and over again multiple exercises, if you're natural, multiple exercises per body part. So if you're enhanced, if you're using any anabolics, then of course you can handle doing more exercises. And even if you're doing single set training like Dorian did, then you'll make progress. And let's make no bones about it. Dorian did not build his physique with traditional high volume training. So before any of you, go ahead in the comments section and say such a thing, just let me know when you spoke to him and how he told you he did such a thing. Because all of his writings from the beginning of his career, and I've followed him since the beginning of his career, all of his writings, all of his interviews, everything was about single set training. In the beginning, there were 2 sets that he did of each exercise, but then he cut that down to 1 set and grew. So, I know. And then you're going to say that it's drugs. Well, all of the bodybuilders that compete at some time in their career took more drugs. And so at some point in time, you have to just give in to the fact that, was it the drugs or was it some training as well? Okay? Don't give zero credit to the training. Give some credit to the training. So he made smarter moves. The bigger he got, the less he trained, which was smart. Mike Mentzer, back in his career, he says he wished that he did less, and it was a mistake in his career that he did so much. So he did buy into a little bit of the competitive, more is better, and he did do an average of 2 sets per exercise early in his career. But yet, let's face the facts, he was doing those exercises to utter failure with force reps and negatives. He was training highly intense. Does it resemble today's high-intensity training? Not quite. And that's not what I'm talking about when I say single-set training. Eventually, Mike Mentzer went to single-set training, and just like Dorian. And so that's what they did in the majority of their professional careers, was single-set training, not multiple-set training per exercise. So that being the case and the facts, they're good examples of that. Myself, same thing in natural bodybuilding. I won the Mr. America training for the prior 11 years, doing mainly single set bodybuilding training per exercise. It's a fact. I would take it beyond just positive failure. I had other techniques I would use to go further and extend a set a little bit longer and put myself into a higher intensity level to send a stronger signal to the muscles. That's what's necessary. You have to send a strong signal to the muscles to justify doing single set training. You can go to concentric failure most times, but occasionally you're going to have to throw in something a little bit stronger than that to go beyond regular concentric training. So single set training has worked out quite well for me, for several bodybuilders out there. Well, many, not just several, but a lot of them, in the course of their careers, they grew their muscle, they competed, they did just fine. I saw several amateurs training this way in the gyms that I've been at, and it worked out just fine. I just most recently trained the current Mr. USA, Ruben Salas. I trained him for that winning effort in the Mr. USA, and he did single set training, and it was all out, balls to the walls, single set training. So there's a current day guy for you. And before you go and you say, well, it was drugs, then just again, but it doesn't make any sense when you say something like that, because all of them at his level were on drugs. Okay, so using steroids, using anabolics, using growth hormone, whatever they use, insulin, I guess, I don't know. But whatever they do use. Okay, so the difference between him and everybody else that he competed against was he had a nice shape to his body, he had ultra low body fat, and he grew muscle, most definitely, in those last few months leading up to the contest. So I do count him as a fine example of somebody else who trained using high intensity, single set training per exercise. My guy, Ruben. So, having said all of that, we're all examples of people who have had victories and have had success doing single set training. Notice I didn't name any studies. I know you all have these studies most recently where they found that fractionally, multiple set routines brought better results in one study, brought more hypertrophy in one study. And to that, I would say, well, that's nice, that's well and good. It doesn't negate single set training at all, because keep in mind, you have more wear and tear on your body with multiple set training protocols. So therefore, you have a higher risk of injury. Therefore, you have a higher risk of eventual pain. Therefore, you have a higher risk of damaging something and not being able to train. Over the long haul, I'm now in this for 38 years. I have full range of all of my joints. I don't have any debilitating injuries. I know that you all will say, well, Dorian totally ended his career that way using high intensity training. And certainly he did. Okay, there's one who got injured and quit his career because of that. Mike Mentzer didn't. He competed right to the end without any torn muscles or torn tendons. So justify that one. You can't. So there's me. There's Ruben currently going for it right now, who damaged part of his body doing volume training. So it wasn't high intensity training that we've had him do. So there's a good answer for you as well. So keep in mind, because it's more intense doesn't mean it's more dangerous. You can do repetitive job motion, high volume, and create injuries. Girls at check stands in the supermarket and guys at check stands in the supermarket, they have wrist injuries, carpal tunnel syndrome they get from just flipping product over a scanner. They do that all day long. So a repetitive motion can cause that kind of a problem and pain. Not high intensity repetitive motion, just repetitive motion. So you have to make a choice along the way. Are you thinking long term? If you're thinking long term, then any of these short term studies that have been followed, to me, mean a lot less. There may have been fractionally more hypertrophy on a higher volume routine versus a higher intensity, lower volume, single set protocol? There may have been, but that's not to say that they did not grow doing single set training. Again, my point is, long term, how you define the best way to train really matters. Because if you're going to say that a study says higher volume builds more muscle, then I'm going to put an asterisk on that, and I'm going to say the study was ultra short. And I'm going to say, let's run down the road of 20 to 40 years. Now show me a few of the people that are doing the higher volume, and I will show you quite a few injuries, wear and tear on their rotator cuffs, their knees, their back. Whereas the higher intensity, lower volume, lower frequency workouts tend to have lower injuries. So it's not just walk in the gym and lift a heavy weight, maximal effort. That's foolishness, inviting injury. That's not what we're talking about here. Single set training is after you're properly warmed up. Okay? Warm-ups could be jumping jacks, push-ups, could be whatever you want them to be. You could warm up with the exercise you're about to do. And we've discussed this in other videos. So, long haul, I think long haul, my choice is single set training, long haul. Do I do occasionally a multiple set protocol? Well, I do, as I said earlier in this video, using my powerlifting cycles, because those kind of cycles involve doing multiple sets, but nowhere near using concentric failure, and that being the least of which I would use in my bodybuilding training. So definitely doesn't use eccentric failure either, or static contraction failure, which I would use all of those in my bodybuilding single set training. So for more on everything that I'm talking about, you can find some more detailed information of the kind of routines that I use and I use on clients right on my website, MrAmericaHeart.com, and you can go there and you will find in the shop, I'll put the link down below, you can hit the shop and you will find books that I've written. I suggest if you are anything more than a beginner that you get a hold of Physique 101, and that details programs, eating protocols, and how I use single set training and why. The details of the why is all in there. And it's all based on what I've done with not hundreds at this point, thousands of clients over the last 38 years. So there you have it. Just my personal experience that I want to share with you, trying to give you the best because I care about you. So from my heart to you, John Hart, I look forward to seeing you again. Before you leave, off to my left, you're going to see this disc pop up by my head. That is the subscribe button for my channel. Please give it a tap to let YouTube know that you want to be notified when I have brand new videos pop up. And then down below, over there, you see that thumbs up button? Give that thing a tap and turn it blue. The YouTube algorithm loves it when you do that, and it helps the channel out a lot. See you soon.